Won't be on CPT anymore.
Yes.
And I should be on, I should be though. I'm gonna call the people from, I'm gonna call the people in Minnesota today and talk to them. Hey everybody, how you doing? Santita Jackson here. Santita Jackson here. I'm about to call. Hmm. I guess Pastor Darius Brooks with some good news. But, well, you know what? It's going to be a special show today. Chappelle, you there? All right, everybody. It's going to be a special show today. As you can see, I'm not on WCPT. I am going to be on AM 950 radio, I think, but I'm not on WCPT. I was let go yesterday. So I want you to, and because many of you who heard about this yesterday have started tweeting and talking about it, um, the station decided not to let me come on the air today. So there is that. And so I want to talk with you about the voices in independent media. And I'm going to bring on many of my guests just so that you can hear from them. But really, I'm no longer on WCPT. And I was, maybe was I shocked, but not surprised. Many people have told me because my views on Ukraine and the Democratic Party, my independence as a Democrat, and my views on Israel and Palestine, a balanced approach to that process. Because of that, many people have said, "Well, you need to watch it, Santita." And because my family have taken a lot of hits in this space, I said, "Okay, I'll watch it, but I'm going to continue on because I want to be on the right side of history, right? Want to be on the right side of history." So here I am. Here I am. So you can imagine my surprise as I had new equipment as WCPT installed new equipment 2 days ago, which is why I've been able to get back up on StreamYard. Um, you can imagine my surprise when I got a visit from the head of the station. She actually works for the president of the station, actually the owner of the station, and um, she showed up at my home. That was not just unusual. I You don't just show up at someone's home, right? But that was okay. I just let her up. It was an element of surprise, and she had someone with her. I said, okay. So as she walked in, I said, have I been fired? And she looked surprised. And I said, well, I said, look, just have a seat. I'm trying to get out to the city council because the city council yesterday passed a ceasefire resolution. And that was in danger of not being passed. It was a fight to the end. And so I was hurried and I did not want to be rude and rush her. But I said, look, I've got to get out of here because I need to get downtown. I need to meet my father down there, make sure he gets upstairs, gets positioned, and all of that. Long story short, she said, we're not making any money. And so, and I've never made money off of this show because it's a brokered show. It's a show that I'm not an employee of WCPT, which has given me the freedom to say the things that I say to you and share with you. And so, um, so I said, okay. And she said, so, and no one's supporting independent media, you have no sponsors to think of. So there's that. I said, okay, all right. Um, I said, well, several things. I was kind of expecting this because many people have warned me down through over the past few months that, given my positions on certain issues, particularly those of my position on the Mid East, that maybe I would get pushback. I said, okay, that's all right. I'll just keep on going. And as my mother says, you keep on going and you see what the end's going to be. And so that is what I did. And let me just say this, I'm appreciative of my time at WCPT. It's been a tremendous experience because without them, I would not have been able to get in touch with you. And we are going to go forward. We're going to go forward with AM 950 radio. That is, unless that relationship is upended. it was going to be we were going to be able to move forward with them today. But after my conversation with the young woman with whom I spoke yesterday, I'm not so sure, but we'll see. I'm going to speak with the head of the station later on today. And I shared with them that another station in Los Angeles would like me, but I was told that the station, that CPT didn't have the equipment and that it would cost a lot of money. Well, it turns out that's not quite true. The flick of the switch could have got me on in this LA station, which is a super station. So there's that. And having said all of those things, that's how we got to yesterday. And as I said, shocked but not surprised. And so I waited until the ceasefire resolution, until we left City Hall, because I did not want to give my parents this information going into the ceasefire resolution. I didn't want to burden my father with that. My father's older; he's an elder, and he's also my dad, and so he gets very, very, very concerned. And so when I got back to my parents' home, I told them, and they were upset, infuriated, and various people and then they started sharing it with people. As people walked in, they told them just got fired. And my parents, given the hits that we've taken on the Middle East, they said, and we know why. Just as an FYI, that is what many people have believed. Okay. So it wasn't just coming from me. People objected to my stance on Ukraine. People objected to have objected to me being an independent Democrat. It is what it is. I love this country. I love people, and I think that if you love people, um, if you love America, you love Americans, and if you love Americans, you got to love the world, because you can't. The world doesn't have borders. That was something that was artificially created by human beings. So I'm going to engage in loving critique, and anything that I can say, any information that I can share with you that is going to enlighten you and bring people together. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so that's it. And Carol, you said when one door closes, another one opens, and some other doors are opening. And so it's as I got a lot of calls last night, and um, I got a lot of support that almost brought me to tears. People who I've just really met over the past few months, many of these young people from Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now, um, who have found a platform here. Many of the Palestinian Americans, the greatest concentration of Palestinian Americans in the United States is in Chicago. They've reached out to me. They're like, what can we do? Because this hit them. Then others who just said the information that you share on the show, I can't find anyplace else. I started getting a lot of calls, and after a point, I just couldn't answer the phone anymore because I was trying to get the show together, and I'm still moving right now. And so it is. And so Carol Soskin, what you're missing is that I was let go by WCPT. I was let go by WCPT yesterday, and they were going to give me today, and they were going to give me Friday, and they were going to run promos to let people know where I am. But now that's not going to happen because they feel that that I've told people that the Middle East is the reason that I was put off the air. And I shared with Katie Dans, who is the head of this station, and she is a brilliant young woman, a lawyer, and she's the president of this group. I said, that is not what I told them. I said, people have made that presumption because you have Mehdi Hassan, you have the Muslim journalist at MSNBC, you have the Palestinian journalists who've been killed. You have a lot of people who've taken hits who have stood for Israeli security and Palestinian justice. I said, maybe I'm just another casualty. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have said that. So it wasn't just me. And particularly when you understand my family's history. When my mother went to the Middle East, we started taking hits. That was in 1979. And she and my father followed up her springtime trip of 1979 to a trip to Lebanon and to the Middle East and Israel in the fall of 1979, and the hits kept on coming. If you look at Reverend Jackson's presidential campaign, it was the right wing of this group that attacked him mercilessly, mercilessly, and tried to end his campaign. That's what it was about over the Middle East. And yet, everything that he said, everything that he and my mother stood for is absolutely true, and I stand on it today. I love Jewish, Muslim, and Christian, and agnostic, and atheist, and anyone. I just love people. And if I can stand for you and with you, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to share truth. That's what I'm going to do. So just stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show, the YouTube channel. Everybody, please go over there if you will, because I really need you all to go to the YouTube channel. It is more important than ever that I get your support over there. So Joyce and Angela and Robert and Shapiro, please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I'm going to bring up some people. I'm going to bring up some people who wanted to talk about this. And let me go on and begin to do that now. And so just pardon me because I'm pulling this show together as we speak. And Chaparral, I'm going to need you to call because she's going to have to be my producer today. I'm going to need you to call my guest and let them know I'm going to have to bring them on individually. So just we're going to work this out. And there's that. Dwight McKee.
Speaking.
Hey, I have to bring you on this way because I'm not on WCPT today. I was blocked from that.
Yeah, so I heard.
So, but I'm bringing you on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook channel. Hold on, because I'm going to have to call each of you individually. And Chaparral, see if any of my guests would be able to conference any of the other guests in. See if they would be able to do that. Okay. So help me out there. And we're going to have this kind of show, but I'm really excited about the opportunity to be able to talk with everyone today. But you were particularly eager, Dwight McKee, and let me know if you all can hear Dwight. You were particularly, well, when you heard that I've been fired, how did you hear about it and what did you think? Because I got a call this morning, a furious call from really the head of the station. And, she said, you've been telling people are leaking online that you were fired over the Middle East. I said, I can't tell people what to think. I said, people have arrived at that conclusion themselves and they're talking about it. I can't bridle anyone's tongue. Talk to us, Dwight.
Well, my immediate thought was you've been targeted. Was my immediate thought. It's that in this country, when you take certain positions on certain issues, there is a bias built into this system that favors, one crowd or another crowd. And there are consequences to be paid if you are in conflict with that crowd which is dominating your environment. And so it seemed to me that because the only thing I could think of is because we've had such an aggressive position on this war between Palestine and Israel, and we really kind of tried to fight in behalf of those who've been suffering in Palestine. And this station is owned by a group of people whose interest is more consistent with the Israeli side, that we end up paying the price for our position and for our convictions, which is okay because that's part of what having convictions generally require. That Jesus said that whenever you take the right position, there's going to be a price to pay, and that it does not come when you fight for freedom and you fight for those who can't fight for themselves. there is a cross to bear for that. And that if we weren't worthy to bear his cross, then we wouldn't be able to be worthy to be his disciples. And that exists even for people in different other religious groups that, when you are a Muslim and you have convictions and you fight for those convictions, there's a price to pay for that fight. If you're Jewish and come out of the Jewish tradition and you take the moral positions, Jesus said they slain all of the prophets were slain for their positions for fighting for righteousness. And so it kind of comes with the territory, and particularly those of us come out of the civil rights community with guys like Dr. King and Jesse Jackson and Meggie Everest. And, there's a long line of people who end up having to pay the ultimate price. LaRussa and people from the Catholic community ended up having to pay quite the price to fight for their convictions. So I wasn't shocked. I wasn't surprised. I think it's payback, and it clearly sends a signal to other people who would take the same position that if they do, there's a price to be paid.
Hey everybody, Santita Jackson coming to you from YouTube and the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Andre, how you doing? Robert, how you doing? And Wanda, sending you so much love. I was let go by WCPT yesterday, and so I'm going to be calling the people who are going to be on my show today about it. Let's talk about it. Robert, how you doing? Barbara from Oak Park, and Wanda down there in North Carolina. Kenneth, Chaparral, you said the truth cannot be hidden. And you said speaking out against the genocide in Gaza is an honorable thing. God will restore and multiply. You know what? I just want to be on God's side. I'd rather be poor in the world than rich in heaven. Really, that's how I was raised. And so this is it's a job. But more than that, it's a mission. It's an opportunity to share with you and to build this group, the Morning Stars. So we'll be doing some things, Dwight, going forward, in some spaces at Push and some other public spaces where we can get together. But I'm going to be reaching out to AM 950 Radio today to see if I'll still be on the air there, and hopefully I will be. But there's another station that wants me out west, and so I'm excited about that. And so we will see how this all goes. Just please stick with me, everybody, because I'll be broadcasting tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'll be broadcasting on Monday. I'm not going to stop. I am not going to stop. I think, and it's interesting that this happened as we were having the ceasefire vote, Dwight.
Which was really a slap in the face of Netanyahu, because it's the whole city saying that this war, so there should be a ceasefire in the war, and also an investment in the Arab community, which has been decapitated, and that is the city council is taking a position, which is interesting because it coincides with South Africa's position in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
The city council was willing to boycott doing the South Africa apartheid, some of the South African companies. And here we're saying right now that as a city council, if this war is wrong and evil, it needs to be halted. And so it's ironic that you got fired from this station at the same time your father was leading a demonstration in city council against the war in the Middle East. Very ironic. Not inconsistent, but ironic.
Well, I tell you, he did something yesterday that almost made me cry. He told someone privately, he didn't say it to me, because my father doesn't like to see his children take hits. And being a protective dad, he doesn't like to see his daughters take them in particular, not in this public space, um, or in any space. He told someone that I was his hero. And he is mine. He is mine.
You're a lot of people's. It's not limited to y'all's family. He's the hero to a great deal of people as you are. Because you operate out of conviction and you're trying to do the Lord's work. And but don't confuse being some people's hero. Because there's many people's hero as you are for doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're also the enemy of people who want to see the wrong thing done. And so you have a double constituency. Those who love you because you do right, and those who hate you because you want to do wrong.
Oh, and you know what? I'll take that. How about that piece? That's fine with me. Absolutely. That is more than fine with me because I told you I'd rather have the riches in God's kingdom than all the wealth in the world. You got it. You got it. I think that the issues that we've raised on this show, and I can see it from how from the response I've gotten from you, the issues that we've raised, the position, the information that we've been able to provide has you all have appreciated it. And so you drive me to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning just to check the news, just to make sure we kind of get this right, just to get you a perspective that will help you to understand the world. It grieved me greatly to see these three soldiers. And yes, they're African American, but they didn't have to be. They could have been white, they could have been yellow, they could have been red, they could have been any color. But to see them killed, reservists, people who just needed to make a little extra money, killed, and why? What are they doing in the Middle East? As people trying to back America into a war with Iran. How is that? What? And no one's supposed to say anything? Are you kidding me? Oh no. Oh no, no, no. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work, Dwight. So somebody's gotta say something. Somebody's gotta say something. Why don't you talk to the people? Just give me one hot second, Dwight. You tell us what positions you think we should be taking.
The right position, whenever it's a choice, you have to take the right position. We have to take the moral position. We have to operate within the frameworks of the moral imperative. And, and that's not hard to figure out. It's whatever works best for the maximum amount of people with uh, equity in the execution of justice and resources and love and peace. It's not unlike what Jesus talked about when he talked about that we have a responsibility, his responsibility to come to those that dispossess and those who are being violated. And so America's interesting. They build a whole notion of a superhero around somebody who comes from out of nowhere with these superpowers to save those who cannot save themselves. And yet everything in the foreign policy and everything in the history of America is the opposite of that. It is they themselves inflicting uh, power and authority on those who can't protect themselves. And so they turn, when Superman save a hero, they call it the American way. And yet historically, the reality of the American way has been to impart pain and war and power on mostly powerless people who can't fend for themselves. So I think one has to be able to dissect and discern one from the other, the reality from the mythology. The sad part of yesterday, when Biden called a family of these poor children who gotten killed, the black soldiers who had gotten killed, and in the Middle East, is he said, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to promote your daughter now, your dead daughter, to a sergeant.
Hmm.
And I was furious about that. And somehow that's a college that should
hold that thought. Hold on. Chappelle, you're on the air with everybody. I've got Dwight here.
Santita, I must tell you, I am devastated at this news, but I believe there's always God always has a better plan for us than we can ever understand. And your message is going to get out clearer and stronger, because I believe that you can no longer be silent and sit by. I mean, to me, people who are silent in this genocide, because when I look at what the news is actually reporting, Santita, and they say that the almost 30,000 people who have been killed in Palestine, and 70% are women and children. That either tells me that Israel don't give a darn, or this is targeted genocide. And you trying to justify this? Hamas ain't even being killed. You have 70% of women and children being slaughtered. What Hamas leaders have been killed? And you're trying to justify the starvation of people. You're not letting in humanitarian aid. They're swimming in feces. And you're okay with this? And the world wants to be silent. And I'm not condoning what Hamas did. Everybody has admitted that was wrong. But two wrongs don't make a right. And none of this is pleasing to God. And so I commend you for standing on your faith and your relationship with God, because that's what has governed you in all that you have done. And what we continue to see you fight, the fight for those who have no voice. And we appreciate that, Santita. And we need voices like you to continue to speak for the voiceless. We're not hearing the people that you bring on the air and the perspective that they bring. We're not hearing it anywhere on mainstream media. You know why? Because they don't want the truth to be heard.
Look, I hear you. I mean, it's been so one-sided, and it hurts everybody, because if you only tell one side, you're telling a lie, and lie is sin. Period. 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 I'm having to kind of pull this show together, but not kind of pull. This is the way the Lord is working it out, because we have more and more people who are tuning in on Facebook. They're not able to pull us up on YouTube, but so just wherever you can find us, get right there and find us. Barbara Bacon, thank you. I love you too. Um, Carol Soskin said she didn't hear the reason. And well, they told me they're making no money off the show. Okay. The sh- just so that you know, I've never been a WCPT employee. It's a brokered show. And I was told that there were no Nielsen ratings, but magically this morning I'm told that I have no Nielsen ratings to speak of. I said, okay, you never told me you had Nielsen ratings. You can't sell a show. You can't sell to advertisers when you tell them we're not measured by Nielsen. That's that's what I was operating up under, you know. And also cannot, Dwight and Chaparral, I can't control people's thoughts. If people think that I was fired for one reason or another, that's really that's on you. That's on you. The stated reason was they're not making money. But other people feel that other people believe there's something else. And when you have hundreds of journalists who've been killed in Palestine, when you've got the 3 Muslim anchors on MSNBC who have been sidelined, one of whom has been fired. Come on now. Come on. Ain't nobody crazy. And I'll stand on it. Chappelle, were you able to bring anybody else up?
You have Attorney Patillo.
Okay. And do we still have Dwight?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, Attorney Patillo. Are you shocked that I've been fired, my friend?
Well, free speech is not free in this country. I think we all understand that.
So, well, now I was told, accused of telling people that I've been telling people that I was fired because of Palestine. I said, people assumed that. When I told my parents, I said, I have the right to tell my parents that I've been fired because if I'm not on the air in Chicago, my father, who does listen, will want to know, where are you? And the first thing he said was, it's the Middle East. It's your position on the Middle East. And I told the head of the station, I said, I know the hits that we've been taking for the past 45 years on the Middle East. You can't tell me anything about that. I know what happened to me in my Harvard interview. It was on the Middle East in 1981. And my mother knew I was going to take a hit. That's why she wanted to go to the Harvard interview with me. But I said, no, Mom, it's going to be okay. She shook her head. She didn't think so. And when I came home and told her how I'd been abused in that interview, she and my father were outraged. But when I was re-interviewed, Dwight, and you remember Eugene Haytow, the founder of Amalgamated Bank, the interview went pretty much the same way, but it was done with a smile. The question was, would I be willing to distance myself from my father and his politics for a seat at Harvard? I said, absolutely not. I was accepted anyway. I didn't ask Harvard to reach out to me. I was a National Merit Scholar. They called me, came to my school, bugging me to death, trying to get me out of class. I'm like, I can't leave class just to say hello to Harvard. I'm not impressed. If you've already sent me a letter, I'll apply if I apply, but I already have full scholarships to HBCUs, and that's where I'm going. So we've been taking these hits, Robert. And I'm not alone. You got the 3 Muslim anchors at MSNBC. You got Mehdi Hassan, who was fired. You've got the more than 200 journalists in Palestine who've been killed. So I don't think that, I think I'm just another casualty. What do you think?
I think he was fired because of Robert Patillo.
I think so. And you. Wait a minute. You and Chappelle. I got the trio with me this morning. Wait a minute. Between Chappelle getting in Facebook jail, reading people the riot act on Facebook, YouTube, and X, and Robert Patillo saying whatever comes up, you, Dwight, you say whatever comes up. Oh Lord. Now all you I have the right ones, baby, on with me right now. How about that? All the people got me fired are with me today. Thank you, Robert Patillo. Thank you, Dwight McKee. Thank you, Chappelle. Thank you.
Aaron is on.
Aaron, how you doing?
Good morning, dear Santita. I'm proud to be on with you today, and I am just shocked that all of this is happening, but also not surprised. And yesterday when I saw your father lead prayer at City Council, that was a really powerful moment. And knowing that you have been, since the beginning, focused on peace, Santita, since the beginning of this conflict, as you said, your conscience is clear because you're on the right side of this issue, the right side of history, the right side of justice. And I'm proud to be a part of your show. I'm just honored to be on today and always. So thank you.
Well, you're part of my life. But I was told that, look, you've been telling people the wrong thing, that you were not fired because of Palestine. I said, I can't control people's thoughts. I said, many people feel that that's why I've been put off the air here. And you've got a large... You tell me. You tell me. Help me.
I mean, I've been praying for you in the show to stay on for that exact reason, because we've seen what happens, as you mentioned, in other media outlets when there's certain topics that are truthful topics that need to be discussed and debated, right? Like the role of independent media is to make sure we're getting facts, we're getting truths, we have a space to discuss all sides of the issue. And that what I've always loved about your show is it's welcomed everyone to have a voice, to ask questions, to give their piece, to debate in a real way where there's not this assumption that I am right, you are wrong, and there's a judgmental nature about it. That is what's missing from our political discourse. You do not other people, right? You do not put them in a box. You do not put labels on people. You allow them a voice and a space, and it's crucial that we have those in our radio, in our television, and in our digital media.
Well, I mean, I've tried to do that. I mean, how do you proceed in this environment? Because I'm being told that I'm out of my mind, and that I should not be, and that I'm having my people call. I said I have supporters. I said they're going to call you. And I just got several texts from people who said they tried to call the station, and the lines are busy. So you all just keep on calling, keep on doing what you're doing. you know.
Well, you have a real audience. You have an audience that looks to you for clarity in, in this mess, right? We know that people are beyond stressed out when they hear the news. They're able to find some peace, some clarity, some understanding, someone to also listen. Your callers are part of this show. Your audience is part of the show. That's not always the case, right? This is not. So I'm glad your audience is fired up about this, and I think it'll show them really what they're missing, right? As Chappelle said, when something better is coming along, and your audience is here with you on the digital space, and as I said to Chappelle earlier, let us know what we can do to support you as your panelists, right? We've been so honored to be a part of this conversation with the nation, with Chicago, with the folks in Minneapolis, and your audience and goodwill is so real, and that's what's showing up this morning with shock at what happened. But the timing is just too perfect. On the morning that the ceasefire resolution comes across in City Hall that nobody thought would happen. I mean, say what you will. Let's do the real math here.
Everybody like and share the show. What did you say Robert Williams show is, Santita? Kenneth Rush, you say you get me up at 6 a.m. on your days off. Bless your heart. Mine too. I just don't have them. Oh, bless your heart. Joyce, you said I'm my father's hero and you're mine. But I've just taken a stand. That's all. I'm talking to some real heroes who I'm talking to them right now as Chaparral has stood in the gap for mothers and for justice, as I've watched Erin take her child out with her to teach him about civic responsibility and civil rights. When I look at Dwight, who I've known since I was a child, who has been pushing for civil rights and civic responsibility and human rights, and really God's way. I've known him all. I don't know a conscious day. There's no conscious day, a day in which I've been conscious, in which I've not known him. Robert Patillo, so much respect and enormous respect and love for all of you. But Robert, with this burningly bright, searingly bright intellect, the brilliance. I mean, all of you have just you've made this all worthwhile. And Regina, you say, I will always love you, my sister, here in San Francisco, supporting you, sending you so much love, and thank you so much. What did you say? To God be the glory. What did you say? I'm just trying to look at some of the comments, Dwight. She gave the excuse that WCPT used, check it out on replay. Yeah, they told me that that there was no money on the show, but I was told some time ago that they didn't use Nielsen ratings. When you are in the business of radio, when you go to a sponsor, they want to know what your Nielsen ratings are. When you tell a sponsor that they are not measured on Nielsen, that's a game changer. Is it not? Is it not, Robert?
Of course it is. And what stations often do is they don't tell you what your numbers are, so you can't contest that. So when they say that, well, you're not bringing in ratings unless you have your own independent social media numbers, there's no way to prove what you've actually presented. I've dealt with that in radio for the better part of the last decade, trying to get a hold of numbers. It's almost a holy grail that they like to keep that secret into themselves. But this is why it's so important to understand that in 2024, with the democratization of information, you don't have to depend on anybody for outlets anymore. That you can create your own platforms, you can create your own following, you can create your own audience, and have the freedom. This is why so many people have just skipped these terrestrial radio aspects in general. They've gone directly to the internet because you make more money. You reach to your own people. You don't have to deal with as much BS. You have your own advertisers, and you are your own brand. You are your own company. There's no need for the middleman anymore. Terrestrial radio is dying for a reason, and I've noticed that there's suddenly, as you said, when anybody speaks up outside of the box on these issues, they just randomly just end up disappearing. And I know we're not allowed to say that certain people control media, but it's very strange that when you criticize certain people in media, you just seem to disappear.
Yeah, I mean that's very real. D. Ray said the theme song is gone. No more Dr. Knighton, no more Dr. Deb, no more Attorney Robert, no more Dwight, no more Sparrow, no more Aaron. Girl, you named the whole lineup. No, that's not true. We're going to be here every morning. And I'm going to call AM 950 radio and see if they're still going to carry me. I don't know what might happen, just given the kind of conversation I had with the station this morning. That could be cut off. I don't know. But there is another station out west that does want me. But in the meantime, we're going to be on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube. So, but watch Facebook and YouTube because these people try to kill your numbers too, because they've been doing that to me for some time. And Jewel said we can get another station and, and we can get the internet. How about that? We're just going to keep on going. We're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on going. Chappelle, can you get anyone else?
Yes, you have Dr. Gibbs, you have Ari, and you have Aaron on right now as well.
Oh, okay. Well, Dr. Gibbs, you see, I've been fired.
Yeah. Well, it's very, it's obviously very, very unfortunate what's happened to you and what's happened to the show here. It's also very unfortunate. This is very consistent with the trend we've been seeing, which it feels a little bit like we're in sort of a state of purging right now of independent voices, purging of dissent, really. There almost seems to be an attitude that's bordering on the criminalization of dissent. The purging of voices on the internet, on social media, often in collaboration. Matt Taibbi has been very effective on this. Collaboration between the media companies and the CIA and the FBI. Purging voices there, and now your show is the latest victim. I guess the question is, what is the problem here, and why was your show purged? And I would say there are three things you've done wrong. The first is you had people and yourself speaking out against the war in Gaza, the killing of civilians, especially children. That was your first sin, I suppose. Your second one was, raising questions about the wisdom of the war in Ukraine, the dangers that posed for world security, the possibility of nuclear war. That was number two. The third is, raising questions about mistakes and serious errors the Democratic Party and the Biden administration has been making all along here. And the possible viability of a third party, possibly Cornel West. You had Cornel West on a couple of times. Well, that was your third sin. And so I think that is how I would see the cancellation of your show. We speak about cancel culture. We're in a mode of cancel culture. You discussed it yourself. Well, you've just been canceled, Santita. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm in great company.
Right.
Well, really, when Nancy Pelosi was calling the ceasefire opponents communists, I said, "Oh, so I'm like Dr. King. Thank you very much."
Yeah.
Ari, your thoughts. Bless your heart. Thank you for being all of you, thank you for being so supportive. Ari Bloomcats, because I think it was your tweet that got me into trouble this morning. Boy, I got read the Riot Act.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize. I'm good. I'm here for it.
Santita, you're just so incredible and you show such courage. And one of the things I wanted to start out with here was by reading some of the comments on that tweet. And, one person, Jimmy Rothschild, who's an organizer here in Chicago, writes, "This is an absolute travesty. I've had the honor of being on Santita's show a couple of times. And the conversations were always deep and thoughtful, grounded by Santita's kindness and intelligence. Give her the mic back." Another guest on your show, Heather Goeed, this is absolutely wild. Santita was an incredible host, and I had tremendous time on her show talking about genocide and being a parent, removing a talented Black woman who speaks truth to power in the name of progressivism is exactly who the Democrats have become. This is sad. Stacey Davis Gates, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union, writes that this is unacceptable. Jonah Karsh, who's the leader of It's Not Now here in Chicago, writes that it's been an absolute honor to appear and guest host for Santita on several occasions. She's a gem of a human being with a fighting intellect and an enormous heart. This is a hugely disappointing decision by WCPT 820. And it goes on and on and on. From so many folks throughout the country who are really big supporters of yours, who think you do just incredible work. And one thing I want to offer Santita is, you do something that not many other folks do, and that's that you ask the really tough, the really critical questions that so many other folks in media are not asking. And these are questions that are absolutely critical to people's lives, that are absolutely critical questions that many of us on the left are wrestling with constantly and are trying to understand and provide a place and a space for us to wrestle with these questions, to talk things out, to bounce ideas off of each other. And overall, you're speaking to our hearts, you're speaking to our minds, you're speaking to our souls. And the mainstream establishment, they hate that. They absolutely hate that. People that own media platforms often hate this as well. They're absolutely scared of it. Because what this signals at the end of the day is that there's a real diversity of voice and opinion about many of these issues. And many of these mainstream establishment figures, they don't want diversity of voice and opinion. They don't want people to be wrestling things. They just want everyone blindly to get in line and be uniform in their, particular allegiance to various things. And that's not the world we want to live in, and that's not the world we should live in. And they're just absolutely so courageous and so amazing for providing this space and these spaces for us to have these critical discussions.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the comments and the support, but I don't think that I'm particularly courageous. I think that I'm operating in a particular tradition, and I never want to betray that tradition, Dwight and Dr. Gibbs and Aaron and Ari. I would never be able to look my parents in the face, let alone in the eye, and say that I equivocated on the genocide of people. I'd never be able to look my parents in the eye and say, I didn't ask a question, some burning questions about Ukraine. I didn't ask questions about why we're spending money on war after war after war, and you've got starving men, women, and children in the United States. I wouldn't be able to. It's just not worth it, Dwight. Everybody, it's just not.
No, and you have to be accountable not just to yourself and your parents, but to God. Those of us who believe in God, that and He's a righteous God, that there's going to be a reckoning one day with us and Him. And He he's going to ask us why we were silent on the hard questions. His challenge to us is, why didn't you visit the sick?
Mm.
Why did you feed the hungry? Why did you clothe the naked? Why did you deal with the least of these? It's his measure for his relationship with us. He says that. And on the final days, if you can't address those questions, then you may have a major problem for eternity. And so, any of us who believe in God, whether you call him Allah, you call it Jehovah, whatever your name is for him, that God requires a reckoning one day. That how were you on the issues that were important to me? That is the issues that affected the least of these. So Godspeed for your courage, your conviction, and for your constituents, those who are seeking truth, those who are seeking understanding, those who are seeking knowledge, and the team you were able to assemble who are truth tellers, who are committed to the same truth that you're committed to. It's a remarkable team. You know, Aaron and Robert, TK, whoever has been in that sphere, Mark, they've all been truth tellers who I appreciate myself and I've learned from.
You know, I know Erin's got to get her children to school. I'm always dragging her early in the morning. I feel so bad about it.
Oh, it's okay. It's the best way to wake up, Santita.
I know, but I always feel so bad. Give love to my God baby John. Before you go, what do you want? What do you want to say? Because wait a minute, I'm not going to do you like Reverend does and keep you over, and then you can't come back anymore. Huh? Oh, I know what's coming.
Well, I'm still in just such disappointment, right? We have the city of Chicago needs this show. We need you hosting it. I'm just so disappointed in the folks at the station for not seeing the bigger picture. But I know that we will continue to show up and have these important conversations and give folks a voice, so they can continue to have a place where a real debate occurs, right? So much of our media is, people reciting talking points and press releases that are handed to them. As a communications professional, that's usually the hope, that you give the news organization the talking points, the press release, and they read it verbatim or print it verbatim and don't really ask those questions. And we see too much of that right now. And what your show was able to do was to cut through that, to ask tough questions, to hold people accountable. And the manner in which this occurred is so disappointing. And I just hope you know that I'm getting some messages from folks who are confused as well and are here to support you. So let us know, Santita. We're here for you, and we'll keep having these tough conversations. That's the only way we solve the problem, right?
Absolutely. Well, we'll be here first thing in the morning. We'll be on YouTube, and we will be on Facebook. Hopefully we'll be on AM 950 radio, but we can't stop, don't stop, won't stop. We're just going to keep on going. I tell you that. Please give John a big hug and kiss for me. And I'll see you in the morning, Aaron, before you take him to school.
Just don't make me do my makeup.
That's all. Well, now, that's going to be a feature. First of all, you all needed to see her at our Halloween party about 3 or 4 years ago, just before the pandemic. First of all,
send you the picture, Santita.
Please send it. I'm going to post it because she looks like a model. Okay. I mean, really. So it was hilarious. I was like, wait a minute. This is supposed to be a costume, Aaron, not a runway outfit. I'm like, what is this? Oh no, get out of here, girl. But look, I wasn't mad at you. Hey, I'm not a hater.
You are not. You are a strong, beautiful woman of God, and I am so honored to call you my sister friend.
I love you, girl. I love you. I
All
love
right,
you.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. At 6:30 before you take your son to school. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody, we're going to be here. Everybody, like and share, like and share, like and share. Just as I have to, it bears repeating. I was let go by WCPT yesterday. I was supposed to have been up on WCPT today, Ari, and I think Ari, you might have prompted this because as soon as the tweet went out or the message went out, and they said, I was called and I was told, you told them that it was the Middle East. I said, people arrived at that conclusion themselves. That was the first thing my parents thought about. They said, it's your position on that. And so there was a lot of anger directed toward me, and they were like, well, you're not going to be on the air. I said, oh, okay. Well, I said, just let me know if I'm going to be on the air because I know how this goes. Okay. If I'm not going to be on the air, not a problem. I need to get over to YouTube and Facebook so I can speak to my people. And that is what we're doing. We've got attorney Mark Fancher. Another reason that I'm not on the air. So I got Ari, okay, and Robert Patillo and Dwight McKee, Shapiro Wells. Thank you, all the people who are responsible for my firing. I'm glad to have you this morning, Attorney Fancher.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. But I add my voice to the many who express gratitude to you for your honesty, your courage, your vision, and they can't stop the revolution.
I want to thank you for your message of encouragement that I read early this morning. And I would, and you would go right to the Bible, right into my heart. Oh, and there is, just so that you know, Robert Patillo's put us on hold, and you hear his music. Robert, somebody let Robert know. We can't hear anybody, but we're gonna bring them back up in a hot second. But yes, I was let go by CPT today. You know what, Chaparral? I think you're probably going to have to let Robert go. Okay. Boy, this is live radio. Oh, okay. Robert?
I dropped him. I'll call him back.
Okay. Well, do we still have Attorney Fancher on?
Yes, everybody else is on.
Well, Attorney Fancher, I mean, and Ari and Dwight and Dr. Gibbs, I mean, what are independent voices to do? Voices that counter the status quo narrative. What are we to do in this environment? Attorney Fancher.
Well, it's always something of a blow, a bit of a setback when the system takes a swing at us. But we, as a people, have been here before. Certainly, our ancestors on the plantation had no platform. In fact, they were prohibited from even learning to read. They were prohibited from gathering in small groups. They were prohibited even from using drums because it was believed that because drums were used for communication in Africa, that they would be used in America to organize insurrection. So they were silenced in the ultimate way. And in fact, if they were caught even uttering anything that smacked of resistance, then that could cost them their lives. But yet they somehow managed to communicate. They somehow managed to organize. They somehow managed to mobilize. They somehow managed to resist. And we see that African people are no longer enslaved, at least formally and legally, in this country because of what they did. So I think it really is a matter of our continuing to draw on our creativity and independence and to be motivated to establish platforms that are totally independent of our enemies. That gives us a little bit more incentive to do that, and so that we can speak freely, so that we can say what we need to say, because we do have a burning need to be free, to achieve our liberation, and we will find a way to do that.
Amen to that. I mean, because, and I think there's something that is shifted in the zeitgeist, Mark Fancher, and where people really, the status quo narrative really doesn't work for people anymore, Mark.
Oh, definitely. And I think it has the power to be terrified. This is something that they can no longer control. There was an article in the New York Times. It wasn't yesterday. It was recently, and it's published now in Black Agenda Report, where it talks about mainstream pastors, black pastors across the country. It mentions your father as well, coming out strongly against not only the Israeli genocide in Gaza, but against Joseph Biden himself, and saying that they can't, in good conscience, as good Christians, continue to support what he's doing. And they have said that if it means not voting for him and taking the consequences, then they're prepared to do that. That is quite profound, because as much as many look back fondly on the 1960s and the civil rights movement, and there is this belief that the black pastors and black churches were solidly behind the movement and were taking risks and all of that, that wasn't actually the truth.
Absolutely.
Dr. King was out there, and a number of black pastors were out there. But it's also true that many black pastors were hiding under the table and would not even welcome Dr. King into their pulpit because of the stance that he took. So for there to be such a mainstream across the board mobilization of thought on this issue is something that I'm sure terrifies many people in power.
We've got Bryce Green, who I mean, I've just, the blessing of this show, Dr. Gibbs, is that I've been able to meet you, that I've been able to get closer to Robert Patillo. I go back a couple of decades with attorney Mark Fancher, and even before I met him, I had so much admiration and respect for this searing and soaring intellect of his and principle that is so grounded in God, and Dwight McKee, who mentors us all, quite frankly. But we've got Bryce Green, a young, brilliant mind, Dr. Gibbs, from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. I was struck by him telling us the truth about Ukraine. And boy, you and Bryce used to take it. Putin's people. But you know what? We kept on going and we never stopped. But boy, folks got angry with me about that. Were you surprised that I've been let go by WCPT, Bryce?
I was. I mean, every time I come on your show, I hear you describe it as America's largest progressive talk network or something like that. So, well, if this is what progressive talk networks are doing, and that's the way they're handling speech, I think we're in deep trouble as a society. If there is no voice that can counter the mainstream narrative, then we've seen time and time again to be inaccurate, to reflect the interests of state and corporate power, to reflect Wall Street and militarism. If there is no counter to that, well, then the people are going to be stupefied and unable to defend themselves against the powers that be that are trying to take more control over their lives, that are dropping bombs on children in their name, that are taking away the future from their children by destroying the environment and the culture. If there's no remedy to that narrative, well, then what can we do? And that's why I've appreciated your show for so long, Santita, and that's why I've appreciated your giving me a platform, because those voices need to be had. I mean, you mentioned the Ukraine stuff. I mean, if we look at what's going on in Ukraine right now, people who are watching the mainstream narrative, it flies in the face of what they were told. They were told that, Ukraine is on its way to victory and that America's fighting for democracy and freedom against the Putin autocracy, dictatorship. And they believe that Ukraine was winning. And they believe that if we just gave enough support to Ukraine, then the whole thing would be settled. But now they've changed their tune. Now it's readily acknowledged in the mainstream press that the U.S. Support of Ukraine has only resulted in disaster. There was the author Masha Gessen. she started, talking about how the Ukraine's democracy has almost completely been dismantled as a result of this war. She's being attacked. She's being attacked by people who have only seen the mainstream narrative, people who have only consumed basically public relations dispatches from the State Department, Ukraine's government, and the major corporations. And so that's why I'm very surprised. Well, not necessarily surprised because, there are always repression and people can only resist insofar as they, have the backbone to, or they have the, ability to withstand that pressure. But the pressures that they're facing are enormous. But this is just something that we know and have to do and have to adjust for and have to build alternative institutions, modes of communicating with masses of people. And I think you've done that successfully. Even if you're not on the show now, you still have this voice. You still have these people who will listen to you. You still have these people who know that the mainstream corporate narrative is flawed or at best and lying to them deliberately at worst.
And it's not, I've never wanted this platform just for me, Chappelle. When I was given this opportunity and when you were with me at WVON, I always felt that this was a platform for everybody. Chappelle.
And you've proven that to be that. You have worked to include all of us. We've always felt like this was a community, a family. That's why it was Santita, Jackson, and Friend. We were thinking about the title because this is what you always promoted, this community. And so what your show has always stood is to inform us of the truth. And I know how hard. I don't know if the audience really realize how many countless hours that you spend researching and verifying. You do your research on your topics, and then you go and you verify the research that you just researched to make sure that you're putting out the information that's correct. So one thing I always say about Santita, if she's saying it, it's going to be the truth. And she's not going to put her name on anything that is not been verified. And even if you take a position that is not mainstream, but you have to stand on truth. And so what we're seeing here is that the pushback that you're getting and in this space is because they don't want to let the people know about what the truth about what's happening. The truth is thousands of people are dying in Gaza. 70% of women and children. That is the truth. That is the truth. And America is idle and complicit with this, with what's happening. And they're sending aid in our name to murder women and children. And as citizens of this great United States, we cannot sit idle and not call our government out on it. So I appreciate you bringing this to light, because if we only listen to CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, we would think that it was 30,000 Israelis who have been killed. And that they're starving Israelis. Because that's all that you hear is about the Israeli death. But you have to go to the underground. And that's what your show has been. It's like it's the underground, the real truth, the news about what's really happening over there. And we have seen this cycle repeat itself over and over again with Darfur, and now this, and this has come again. Santita, you have to continue to speak the truth to power. And as Martin Branch always said, the revolution will not be televised. But we got to televise this revolution. The people need to know.
And broadcast
it. What's going to happen is going to manifest itself in this Democratic convention in Chicago.
You
get ready for a showdown. Chicago. It's coming.
No, wait a minute. I have to ask. I have to ask the whole audience about. I have to ask the panel about that. You and Dwight and Ari in particular. Um, Dwight, you keep saying that there's going to be a showdown, and you and Ari are going to lead it. So, Dwight, talk to me about what you're expecting in Chicago.
Doing the convention?
Uh huh.
Oh, I expect midnight madness. I think it's gonna be chaos. Chaos to an extreme because they're not going to resolve the war. Biden's popularity is down to 39%.
Mm.
You find these young activists becoming more and more empowered. So when they have victories like they had victory yesterday at City Hall, says to them that there's nothing that can't be done because they were down in that fight and they allied with some other groups and Bush and the Bad and a couple of aldermen, and before you knew it, it was a victory. And even the men ended up having to join their side because it was the right side to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And so as they become more invigorated and more empowered, you're going to see more of an assault on the Democratic convention in order to save the democratic process. That's the irony. Is an assault on the Democratic convention in order to save the democratic process. And while they're saying that the Republicans and Trump them, there's an assault on democracy, the fact is there's an assault on democracy all the way around. And it needs to be fought against all the way around.
Ari Bloomcats, what do you foresee at the convention? I mean, you and Dwight wanted to lead. What is it? What on the Democratic?
We made a couple of comments about the Democratic Party, and I don't know anybody that is involved in any way in thinking about politics on the left right now that is not in many ways thinking about the Democratic Party and about what's going on. And it's such a critical conversation right now, and the idea of ignoring that conversation, I honestly find really disrespectful to voters, and particularly Democratic voters. This is a really critical question right now, which is, can Biden defeat Trump? That's such a critical question because Trump is very scary. What he represents is very, very scary. We've seen it before, and what could be coming could be much, much worse. And the idea of just trying to not talk about it is, I find unproductive and quite silly. But there's things here. Santita, one other thing I wanted to offer just about how special your show is that I don't know how many folks maybe realize it, but you created such a community with your show, both community of listeners out there, a community that you're very connected with as well. But one of the things I found so special is also the community that you've created with the folks that you bring on the show. I'm so grateful, Dwight, to be in community with you. I'm so grateful to be in community with so many of the other panelists that are on the show, and we've connected, and look at doing constructive work in Chicago together, and that's just so special. And it's not really something that happens a lot of other places. In terms of the DNC, I think it is strongly, it's very probable that Biden is going to be the nominee. But one of the things that I think Dwight just touched on here is that change is coming to this country. Change is here now, and change is coming to the Democratic Party, whether or not the Democratic Party establishment thinks it's happening or not, or wants it to happen or not. Change is coming, and I know that this scares the Democratic establishment deeply. There's change, this idea of change, this idea that they may not be in the total control that they've been in for so long. But I think what a lot of voters on the left are seeing right now And a lot of people who are coming to the convention are seeing right now is a very consistent failure on behalf of the Democratic Party in representing the people who voted for them in office. And the Democratic Party consistently asks voters to make these horrible choices and decisions about what evil we are okay living with.
Mm.
And you're now finding voters saying, we're not okay living with evil. We're not okay voting for that. We're not okay voting for, the enabling of the murder of children. But we can't do that. And so change is absolutely coming. And I think no matter what happens at the DNC,
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're going to see is a lot of indicators of this coming change. And we've seen it over the past several election cycles, that there's change coming to the country and change coming to the Democratic Party. And I think that's where we're headed, and I think that's what we're going to see at the DNC.
I mean, change is coming. Change is, as you said, change is here. I mean, Dr. Gibbs, come on. The Republican Party's been changed. I mean, that's just the spirit of the times, Dr. Gibbs. Is he still there? Bryce?
I'm sorry, I
Oh.
was on mute there.
Oh, no, it's okay. Genius on mute.
I think what you are seeing in the Democratic Party, that I'm seeing at least, is there's something, both parties in a certain sickness right now. Trump clearly is representative of a certain sickness in the Republican Party, but the Democrats have their own sickness, which is they become mostly just, at least at public rhetoric level, they're just a reaction against Trump. And so much so that they seem to justify having a kind of very rigid party line that's, to me, a little bit historically reminiscent of the worst tendencies of maybe even the Communist Party in the 30s, where they just would not tolerate internal dissent. And, I'm seeing this everywhere. The Democrats just do not like internal dissent. They're pretending that there's no challenge to Biden from people like Dean Phillips or Williamson. They drive people out of the party. They tried for a while to purge Bernie Sanders before he became more cooperative. And so it's getting really dysfunctional. And I think the cancellation of your show is the latest evidence of that. That any kind of disagreement with the establishment position, especially on these foreign policy issues, is just not tolerable. And there has to be more of a culture of open discussion, and yes, dissent and disagreement. And the Democrats just seem to be completely intolerant of that. I'm very surprised and disappointed that the people like AOC, who went to the Congress with, in my view, so much promise, she's really hasn't lived up to that promise. And I'm not really seeing a lot of effort on her part to open discussion within the party. Well, it's not true. On Gaza, she has. And on Gaza, I do give her credit on that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and more generally, there just seems to be a certain need that the Democrats need to march in lockstep because the danger of Trump is so great. And in some ways, they're reproducing some of the worst tendencies in the Republican Party, including things like alignment with the intelligence services and the kind of tremendous respect for the intelligence services. I mentioned this before, but recently you had Nancy Pelosi on saying, anybody who dissents on Gaza or in Ukraine is a Russian agent and should be investigated by the FBI. She came very close to saying that. She certainly implied it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really pretty shocking. And that's at the very highest levels of the party. And so in light of that kind of atmosphere, on the one hand, I was really quite astonished about your message that you've been fired from the radio program. On the other hand, in a certain sense, I'm not that surprised because it just seems to be tenor of the times right now.
Mm-hmm.
Simply removing dissident voices and shutting them up and pretending they don't exist. And it really has to stop. It really has to stop.
Bryce, what's your response? Because you've been one of those dissident voices. You and Dr. Gibbs were called Putin's puppets. Just because you were examining data about Ukraine. You were examining history about Ukraine, and you were contextualizing Ukraine. And yet people were saying, just like Nancy Pelosi said, well, if you call for a ceasefire, like Dr. King, if you call for desegregation and equality and justice in America, you must be a communist. What the hell? So I'm a capitalist if I want slavery. But if I want fairness, I'm a communist. Something about that, Bryce. I mean, that's a consistent message to me.
Oh, it really is, and it's very effective, and it has been ever since the McCarthy era. You had haul people before the Committee on Un-American Activities, and demand that they had any ties to the Communist Party. And this is because they were a civil rights leader, if they believed in equality, if they protested wars, if they disagreed with that. It's an effective smear because, again, people are not exposed to counter narratives. They're only exposed to one dominant state-led narrative that the enemy is at the gates and that you're either with us or against us. So if you take a position that's runs contrary to what the American establishment says, well, then you can be easily tarred as either a Russian agent or a Chinese agent. It depends on the news cycle. But the people who don't have any access or any inclination or any experience with alternative media and alternative narrative, well, they can accept that. They can accept it as fact that the only reason that someone would be for defunding the police is because they're a Russian agent, or the only reason that someone could be for a ceasefire, or against Cop City, or against all of these things is because they're a Russian agent. But I think it's changing. I think it's changing in this generation. I've been organizing a lot lately with students on my campus, and a lot of them are undergraduates. And if you talk to them about the Democratic Party, well, they'll just laugh at you. They'll say, Biden's a joke. Genocide Joe. I'm not doing that. I'm not going down this road. And a part of that, I think a significant part, not only has there been significant moral development of the youth, owing to years and decades of movements that have been pushing for a change in the culture, but it's also due to the information environment in which these people live in. If you're 18, 19 years old today, you're not watching CNN. You're not reading the New York Times. You're not listening to Anderson Cooper, or you're not listening to these voices of the establishment that the people in power seem to hold in such high esteem. You're listening to independent voices talk about their opinions about reality. You're looking at people making videos on the internet who can give you sources and narratives that you will never see anywhere else. Now, that could be good and bad, as we've seen with the far right. But the good, I think, is outweighing the bad. You look at what kids are saying about Joe Biden today. His approval rating with my generation, the 18 to 29-year-olds, is in the hole. Is in the hole. And then they aren't swayed by these media cycles that will, cut to Biden bombing Yemen and call it a victory, or cut to, what have you, whatever distraction, because they're not as indoctrinated with that mainstream narrative as the older generations are. And so when you're talking about the DNC, I'm seeing echoes of '68. I'm seeing people saying, "Oh, why would we even consider Joe Biden as anything other than the enemy? Just as bad as Trump, just as bad as Bush, just as bad as Netanyahu. They're part of the same system, and they all support each other and have essentially the same policy." That mentality is more common than ever in our generation. And the question is whether or not that's going to be turned into idle nihilism, where people are, disempowered, demobilized, and organized because they don't feel like they can have a say, or whether these feelings can be channeled into meaningful organizing so people can get a real understanding of their world and act in ways that they can change. And the answer to that question depends on what we do today, the independent media platforms that we build today, the organizations that we build today, the people that we're meeting. Maybe we'll bring some people to Chicago. Mm-hmm. We'll meet a lot of new people, and we can share ideas and foster this new generation of anti-establishment politics that doesn't take no for an answer, and especially when 10,000 children are being killed.
Dwight, isn't that what we saw with the Mideast with the Midi Summit we just had at Rainbow Push, which we're going to have yet another in March, when people were very happy to meet each other. They were very happy to get off of Zoom, to get off the telephone and see one another and talk with one another and eat with one another. And we saw it last Sunday at Push too. Right.
Well, one of the things that to come out of this is that people who have moral convictions tend to be wonderful people. And people who will fight for the underdog tend to have very noble, principled attitudes. And so when you meet guys like Ari, guys like Aaron, and guys who, even though they come from a different race, a different culture, a different sometimes party, is that you have these shared values, and you have this inherent rhythm that reflects in what Dr. King always called the beloved community. And so not only do you get the real benefit of waging war against mean-spirited people, you get the benefit of fellowshipping with like-spirited people. And so it's a double, a double pleasure for us that we, fight as comrades, and we love as we fight against the enemy as comrades, and we love each other as comrades. And so I implore everybody to come out for this next summit, because it's really great, and the participation is great.
Is there a date for that next summit yet?
It has not properly been announced, but I think it'll be properly announced by the weekend.
And I will put it out there. I will put it out there. We'll use this platform to get you in from Indiana, to see if Dr. Gibbs can come in from Arizona, and on and on and on, because it really was something wonderful. And it was really wonderful to be with people and to go out to dinner afterwards, to eat in between sessions. And you don't feel alone. Number one, there is a community out here, and it speaks to what we've been talking about, creating this community. Mark Fancher. I mean, that's what Dr. King talked about, the beloved community, not, people living in silos, but living with one another, using the highest principles of God, that we would live by. We have got to get there. And I don't think war is the way to do it. I don't think that killing is the way to do it. I don't think that imperialism is the way to do it. And I am not going to stop. I was just given a message that many people on other shows on the station, AW, said there are currently other shows on WCPT where the hosts and guests repeatedly speak of listeners opposed to the Ukraine war as Putin apologists. The thing is, you don't need to do that to people, Mark. You don't need to diminish them in their opinions. I don't do that with people who agree with Trump or Biden, who appreciably, to me, there is not a whole lot of difference between them if you want to look at their right-wing politics, quite frankly. So you help me out here. I mean, what about establishing this community and continuing to go forward, Mark?
Yeah, I think that has to be our highest priority, because in reflecting on Chicago in 1968, and even now when people are raising their voices against the Democratic Party, certainly most of that is because of anger about substance, about what the party is actually doing, what Biden's actually doing. But I think mixed in with a lot of it is frustration, because there is a belief, a widespread belief, that the Democratic Party is supposed to be the progressive party. It is supposed to be the independent party. And I think that this time around, we need to eliminate a lot of that frustration so that people are very clear about what the Democratic Party is. The fact is that the oligarchy would really love to have a dictatorship. They would love have looked at history and to know that dictators don't last very long because it is a human instinct to reject, and to react, and to crush dictators. It may take a minute, but eventually the masses of people always come together and they crush dictators. And so the oligarchy knows that. And so in order to prevent it, they have constructed this elaborate charade, an elaborate con game to deceive the people into believing that there is no dictatorship in this country. And an important element of that charade is the Democratic Party, so that they're able to say to the people, look, you have choices here, unlike in a dictatorship, where you only have one choice. Here you have two. You got the Republican Party and you have the Democratic Party. But what the people never quite understand is that there really isn't a choice. Oligarchy controls both of them, and it always has its agenda pushed forward no matter who is in power. And so people get frustrated because the party that's supposed to be representing the interests of the people somehow still seems to serve the empire. It still serves the oligarchy. It still serves the powerful, even though they're supposed to be doing that. And so people get frustrated. And so I think that there will be real political growth, real political maturity, when people understand that both parties are our enemies. They really are. And that we have to reject both of them. And the new formation, whatever it may be, whatever form it may take, has to be, in its essence, a beloved community of people of goodwill, people who are truly independent thinkers, people who are revolutionary in their approach, people who have no use for concentrated power and empire and all of the ravages of war that it brings and all of those things. So I think that it has to be a priority. And if there is going to be a confrontation at the Democratic Convention, then I think it's not one where the message and the intent is to try and reform the Democratic Party, because it cannot be reformed. It can only be destroyed.
Ari, what should we be doing in media? I mean, how do you survive? And I mean, let alone thrive in this environment?
That's a great question. Santita, I feel really blessed to be able to work at in these times and be surrounded by, staff and leadership that is all very committed to independent media and also to, a really high standard simultaneously of journalism ethics, but also
Wait a minute. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Have you heard that I was fired?
Sister, what the?
Well, wait a minute. No, I'm on the air. I'm on YouTube. With everybody. You want to come on?
I'm stuffed up.
No. But this is everyone. Nina Turner called me. I'm going to call her as soon as we get off here. But yep. I'm gonna call you right back. I promise. Okay. See, but I'm gonna tell you. Oh boy, I'm sorry, Ari. I had to stop. I had to stop State Senator Nina Turner from saying something that Chappelle would say to get you in Facebook jail.
Oh yeah, no problem at all.
I didn't realize the word would spread so fast. But how are you making it? What do we do?
Santita, I think, I want to suggest that for folks like me and you, I don't think there's much of a question in how we can operate when it comes to journalism and media. I think folks like us are doing this because we care about telling stories and engaging in critical discussions that illuminate rather than obfuscate, discussions that help provide paths forward for folks to think about and make their own decisions about how they're going to operate in the world and how they're going to engage in change for social, racial, gender, and economic justice, among other things. And this is why we do this. don't think we can do it any other way. I think that as soon as folks try and suggest that we sacrifice what we know are true journalism ethics, when they ask that we sacrifice our professionalism, when they ask that we sacrifice our moral compass, that's not something that we can abide by. And, it's really, really hard out there right now. And, I think it's really, unfortunate and tragic and frustrating and angering and infuriating that this has happened to you. And we've seen it happen, around the country right now when it comes to media. We saw tons of journalists, for example, at the Los Angeles Times, being penalized for signing the letter in which they, suggested that maybe alternative language should be used when talking about Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen other journalists fired. We've seen journalists censored. We've seen people reprimanded. And of course, beyond journalism, we've seen it in so many industries as well. I can't say too much right now, but we're working on a story currently about how a lot of this is playing out in Jewish communities and in Jewish spaces as well. And we've seen it in particular fall hardest on people of color. We've seen it fall hardest on Palestinians. So we've seen it fall hardest on Muslims, and we've seen it fall hardest on Black folk in general. And this is the media landscape that we're in right now. We're in a media landscape in which people of color are continuously marginalized and penalized for simply doing their job. And that's absolutely infuriating. And, if there's anything that we might do right now, what I would suggest to listeners is that you go out and subscribe to each and every independent publication that you can get your hands on, that you, spend a lot of time, consuming that content. And in particular, that people make sure that they are going out of their regular routines right now to continue to make sure your voice is shared and to make sure that your voice is lifted up and to make sure that the folks who have tried to silence you now are not able to fulfill their mission, that the folks who have tried to silence you now and the things that you represent, and the things that you have, rightfully, created space for discussion about, that those discussions are not shut down, that those discussions are not silent, and that your voice in particular is not silent because we need your voice so desperately.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't want to make this about me because I'm in wonderful company. This is about we. It's about a platform that we have and voices that we have that need to be heard at the end of the day, really. As a talk show host, I can get up here and give you my opinions and talk about what I believe, me, 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 me. I'm from a family of 5 children. I believe in teams. Okay. And my mother said, look, I got five of you, and I have to balance out all of your needs and many of your wants and make a decision based upon what is best for the whole. And when you come from a family, that's what you do. Even when you're fighting and pushing, and then we do all of that. Yeah, we do. But at the end of the day, we hug it out. And I hope that, and that's a lesson I've taken away from my family life. Because trust me, my brothers, my sister, and I we can get into it. But we don't, but I think maybe because Dwight, we grew up knowing that each day and really each moment is not promised, we don't hold on to it. Too many of our friends were killed just down through the years. Too many of us have friends who lost parents or grew up without them. So it made you not, as my brother Jesse said in an article more than 40 years ago, he said, you don't feel quite, You don't rebel. You don't want to rebel against your father if you think that every time you see him will be the last time you see him. And we used to take our father to the airport just about every week, and one of us would disappear into the bathroom at the airport. And I didn't realize that each one of us didn't want to know that each of us had been crying because we thought that when we put dad on that plane, that was it. So let's not hold on to stuff, y'all. Even this, larger protest with CPT, and you're doing it not for me, you're doing it for you. You're doing it for you because you deserve to be heard. Remember, the press is the only protected professional class in our Constitution. Because if you don't have a free press, if you don't have information, you have nothing here. Nothing. So I'm gonna go around because I need to make some calls and I need to run. But I'm gonna extend this broadcast. We're gonna go beyond 8 o'clock, Chaparral, just going forward because we're gonna have the time to do that. And you all have shown the inclination that you want to do that. The audience doubles in the second hour anyway. But I want to go around and get some thoughts, and so I can hear what Nina Turner's got to say. Sounded like Chaparral today. Oh my word! I mean, Dr. Gibbs, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there.
What's your closing thought? And of course, I'm going to reach back out to you because we're going to continue to talk about this and other issues tomorrow. Everyone will be right back here just after 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, talking about the great issues of the day. We're not going to stop. If I'm on AM 950 radio, great. If I'm not there, great. We're going to be right here. We're going to be on YouTube. We're going to start streaming on the Santita Jackson, SantitaJackson.com website. I just have to get the portal open. We're going to do all of that. So don't you worry about it. We're not going to miss a beat. We are not going to stop. That's why I got up this morning. And when I met the hostilities from the station, I said, do you not want me to broadcast this morning? Of course, I'm not going to let you on. I said, okay. So I need to get away from here because I got to go talk to my people. Got to do that. So, Dr. Gibbs.
Well, yeah, the closing thought is just to, follow up on what you just said, which is that I think it's more important now than ever that independent voices speak out and not cooperate with censorship, not cooperate with being purged or canceled. And we must have open discussion about Gaza. We must have it on Ukraine. We must have it about the direction of the Democratic Party and the progressive movement. And, we have to resist all efforts to smear us as agents of foreign powers and to denounce people, use a kind of McCarthyite rhetoric. The stakes are very high now. This is going to be a critically important election, the one coming up. And, both candidates are obviously very dysfunctional. And so in that context, it's vitally important that shows like the Santita Jackson show continue and that people continue to basically express independent voices, not just allow themselves to become clones or mouthpieces for the establishment or to, be a talking head on CNN or MSNBC. We need to think independently here. And, we need to, advance shows like this one that allow independence of thought.
Well, Ari, your thoughts, because I'm going to be working with you because as we were going forward, you will have a regular segment on my show. And because your voice is important. And I love working with you, my Ari.
Love working with you so much as well. One of the things that, I was thinking about when you were asking about, what can we do in this moment is, it strikes me that throughout my career in professional journalism, and I've been in the business, about 20 years, there's a very persistent and widespread problem about overall ownership of these media spaces, and that the ownership is not really democratized in most of these spaces. There's generally very, very wealthy folks that own these spaces, and the whims of these wealthy folks, the moves of these wealthy folks, carry a lot of weight and power because they, essentially wind up running these spaces. And, you know, I'm thinking in particular about, you know, many of the billionaires or, you know, multimillionaires or hundreds of millionaires. I don't really know what you call someone that has hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe that's the hundreds of millionaires. But you've got these people that own all of these media spaces across the country. And this is problematic. This is problematic for a free press. This is problematic for an independent press overall. And so I think that's like something that, you know, as community and as organizers and for social movement, that we really need to focus on in so many ways, which is, you know, how can we really further democratize these critical spaces for public information, for public discussion and public discourse, and how can we, you know, build better institutions and better spaces around them. And that's just something I'm thinking about as well. And, you know, overall though, I just, you know, I want to really, you know, express to listeners here how critical it is that, you know, we really do everything we can to continue uplifting your show here and the critical discussions it represents.
Bryce Green, your thoughts? If you're still there, if you haven't had to go to class.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
I just want to echo what everyone else was saying about the importance of this platform, about the importance of the community, and about the importance of persisting and resisting these episodes of censorship. I mean, we live in an era where we have more opportunities to get our message out. And that means we need to take advantage of these opportunities. And that means we need to go outside of the traditional corporate system when we can. And I think there's an opportunity here to build something completely different, or not the same, but it's different in that it's not controlled by anyone. It is a true community, and it can overcome the levels of censorship. It can overcome the hegemonic narratives that come from the mainstream press, and it can really make an impact in people's lives and understanding of the world. And, you know, and this could be a chance to attract an entirely new audience as well. Not just the people of Chicago, but, you know, the people across the internet. You have that personality. You cultivated this community in Chicago. And, well, the sky's the limit.
Well, you know, we've done it because people have heard you, they've heard your voice, they've heard Dr. Gibbs' voice, they've heard Mark's voice, they've heard Dwight's voice, they've heard Aaron's voice, they've heard Chappelle's voice, they've heard your voices, they've heard CK, they've heard Robert Patillo, heard so many people. I don't even know that you exist, but it's like you give people a chance to exhale when they hear you, because it's like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, you mean there's someone who sees something that I see too? Mark Fancher, your closing thought.
I just am hopeful that as we continue to navigate our way through this very strange and wonderful period, that we're not moved and impacted by fear. I think that unfortunately there are many people who are trying to make decisions, trying to maneuver in ways which are driven by that. Well, we can't have Trump in office. We can't do this. If we do this, then that will happen. I don't think we have the luxury of doing that. I think that we have to identify what our principles are, what our needed objectives are, and we need to pursue them without compromise. And I think that that's the only way forward, because if we get into fear, if we, or just as one example, decide that we're going to support Biden because the alternative is worse, then we have not really given ourselves a better alternative.
Absolutely.
The alternative that we've chosen is a man who is fully supporting genocide. A man who has really never lived up to the promises that he's made to real people. All we've done is just stay on the treadmill. We have to be brave enough, we have to be courageous enough to just jump off of that treadmill and start making real progress in a real way. And, for those who are concerned about the consequences, there may be consequences. But the one thing that I've always known is that God is there for us. It doesn't matter what the world says is going to happen to us. It doesn't matter what the world does to us. If it's God's will, then it will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to place our faith in that and to step out on it and to make sure that we're doing what he wants us to do. And in the end, it's going to work out the way he wants it to work out. Take comfort in that. There's no need to be afraid of any of this.
Amen to that. Dwight, before you give us some closing remarks, I got Chappelle blowing up my phone. What do you want people to do, Chappelle? First, your closing remarks, Chappelle. First, your closing remarks. Because let me say this. I met Chappelle when I was at WVON, and everybody, Ari and Dr. Gibbs and Bryce and Mark and Dwight, this girl used to harass me, and she used to call me on the air and give me the business. But I wasn't mad because I appreciated the fact that she was challenging, that she was a challenger. And I felt that she was coming from a pure place. And I felt that she wanted me to get the story right. And she disagreed with me on more than one thing and pushed me on that. And I thank you for that, Chappelle. But I met her and her husband one day, even in the midst of all of that. And she was so embracing and kind and loving and warm. And then she harassed me on social media, telling her I didn't give her any love. So I had to do that. Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to thank you for pushing me and for really pushing me to be you and Marty, for pushing me to be what I'm supposed to be. And thank you, my dear sister friend.
Santita, I love you so much. And what you have given this audience is something that like I said earlier, we are a family. And as a family, we support you. And we have your back 1,000%. And so in my closing thoughts, what I want everyone to do who love the show, love Santita, is to actually go to her YouTube channel and subscribe. And actually like and share this program. And write WCPT and express to them the need for shows like the Santita Jackson show. It was for me, disheartening to see that they let you go in this manner because you're one of the few that actually tell the truth. And they want to silence you. And this is a form of censorship. So if you disagree with censorship, if you want your voice to be heard, if you want to hear the truth, then you support this show by liking and sharing and subscribing to her YouTube channel, and let's get her on the platform that she needs to be on. And I know that this is just a minor setback, and you're going to be destined for greatness, Santita. And we're going to keep on pushing forward, and I'm going to help you in any way possible.
And we're going to do it together because we're all destined for greatness. That's what God put us here for. It's not just me, Dwight. It's all of us. God put the seeds of greatness in each one of us. And I hope that is your takeaway from this show every day. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have money. That doesn't make you good. It doesn't make you great. It makes you famous. It makes you moneyed. What makes you great is your service, is your alignment with God. That's what makes you great. That's what makes you great. Dwight McKee, your closing thoughts before we go.
And Pearl, unlike anybody else that I've met, excuse me, can fight with the right hand and make a great chocolate cake with the left.
Hello. Wait a minute, and she makes greens with real ham hocks. I'm sorry, you guys who don't like the pig. I love it. Love it. Love it.
My closing thoughts is that I'm really elated because I see this as a real expression of solidarity that I think every generation God raises people up to deal with his will and his work. And when I see these young guys like Aaron, like Ariel, these really young guys rise up to the occasion and pick up on the mantle the giants and our ancestors that fought, the Marcus Garveys, the Dr. Kings, the Jesse Jacksons, the Stokely Carmichaels. When I see this new generation picking up on the tradition of the Diane Dashes and fighting the fight for their generations, fighting for the values that they believe in, putting themselves on the line in the courage that they're demonstrating, the clarity they're demonstrating, the strategy and the caring, the empathy that they demonstrate, it really encourages me to know that, the truth goes marching on, as the song says. And so I'm very, very, very encouraged and excited about what I see with this cast in class of new players, as we attach them to our generation and as we reattach ourselves to the generation before us. And we actually took the radio show and the who had come out of the radio show, turned that into the symposium. And then we now turned the symposium into another facet of the movement. And so people who've come out of the symposium, we've rounded them up. And now it's reinvigorated the coalition that we had in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s. And so, whatever betides us, we need to know that God is going to get his and he's going to use us to do it.
Amen. Well, everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and like and subscribe there, Pet Granny and Big Louis. Please do that. Like and subscribe and meet me here tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, just after 6. I'll be right here. We'll be right here talking about this and the great issues of the day. And I want to thank you with all of my heart for your love and support, for all of these messages from Stephanie Fox from Jewish Voice for Peace, and Aaron Niederman, and Ari, who's concerned that I didn't get a massage last night. And just one of the things I love about Ari, Dwight, and Bryce, and everyone, he'll always say Santita, and I hope that you all would take this. I hope you do something kind for yourself. Because, we do take these hits, and being fired hurts. It does. But I tell you what hurts even more, when you're disobedient to God and you're disobedient to principle. So I'm accustomed to a family that takes hits. I mean, I'm accustomed to that kind of life. So I'm okay with this. I'm more than okay with it. What I'm not okay with is 30,000 men, women, and children being killed in Gaza. I'm not okay with the patriarchs of these Palestinian families being marched in front of their families naked and humiliated, trying to break the family psychologically. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with the Israeli government holding these hostages as if they're some kind of pawns in some sick game. It's not right. I'm not okay with us having more military bases in the world that we invest in than schools. I'm not okay with that. I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up to drop more bombs than anybody else in the world. I didn't sign up for that. And I'm going to stay on that. I'm from the King movement. I was raised by Jesse and Jackie Jackson. You be obedient to that. And more than that, you be obedient to God's will and God's way. All I'm saying is give peace a chance. That's all I'm saying. And they killed John Lennon because that's all he was saying. But God knows he was right. So this is Christmas. And what have we here? No more war for Christmas. What a prophet he was. I will align myself with these people who reject the riches of the world for all of the blessings of heaven. So I'll see you tomorrow morning, everybody. I love you. And keep calling WCPT. Do that. But don't do it for me. Do it for you. On one day, I'm going to trot on off this earth and keep it moving. This is about Ari, who's a young man, and Bryce, who is a young man. This is about them and their voices not being muted. This is about Aaron, and her child, and their voices being amplified. This is about this American project really working, not just for the oligarchy, but for the people. That's what this is about. I appreciate the love that you've shown for me. It means so much more than I can ever say. But my father taught me, don't take yourself too seriously, and I don't. It's not about me. It's about you. It's about this. And if you need to use me to make a point, I'm here for it. I am. So use me in that way. If you need to use me for that. But believe me, I'm not making this about me. I'm not. And I don't want you to do that. I want us to go beyond the personal and get into principle. This is about freedom and liberty and justice. Justice. So I love you, everybody. And thank you for being with all of us this morning. Chaparral, thank you for being the producer. I love you, girl. Because I had to call her Dwight and Ari and everybody. I said, wait a minute, Chaparral, my phone won't do conference calls. I'm having lots of trouble with the phone. And so she was like, okay. So she was here for it. And we got up on the air this morning. Did we not, Chaparral? God made it happen. I'll see you tomorrow right here tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. I love you, everybody. Mwah. Thank you so much. God bless you.